Hello and welcome to Credit Versio's Q&A Wednesday live for February 8th. We are back and it's just us today. So John is taking a break. He'll be back next weekend. So one of the cool things about being able to have just us together is that we can talk about credit repair, and that's really my background. 10 years in credit repair, 7.5 years as the VP of one of the largest and most successful credit repair companies in the U.S., and then coming up on 3 years with Credit Versio, which is now the largest processor of disputes in the United States. So we can, with a lot of confidence, say that we are probably quite a bit bigger than Lexington Law and CreditRepair.com, because those are paid-for services, monthly fee, whatever you want to call it. And Credit Versio is full DIY, free software. The only thing you got to pay for is your third-party smart credit subscription. So here we are. All right, I got a new change to my software today, so bear with me. But I'm happy to have you here. Please take a second, say hello, introduce yourself. It's just a closed group here. Nobody's been invited to this Facebook Live except for people who recently signed up for Credit Versio within the last 7 days or so. So, we're not going to have thousands and thousands of people here, so don't worry about having your name out there to say hello or ask a question, because that's what we're here for. We're here to improve our credit, and as a certified FICO pro and instructor and somebody who's, how many credit reports have I looked at over the years? Probably 15, 20,000 credit reports. I've done about 10, maybe 15,000 credit consultations to help people understand and also improve their credit. And one of the things that I pride myself on is I cut through a lot of the nonsense, and I don't want to disparage the credit repair industry. It's an industry that's been good to me and one that I like being in, but there's a lot of nonsense out there, and I see it every single day. And what we're here to do on this live is just talk about what's real, how to improve your credit, smart habits, things to do, and also want to talk about the dispute process. And we're going to talk about that today. And one of the things that sometimes goes a little sideways in the dispute process, and that's when the bureaus reject your letter. So let's take a second here. We got about 10, maybe 12 people on. Please say hello. Where are you from? Is this your first time? Are you new to Credit Versio? Sabrina, thank you so much for being here. All right, you're a weekend, super excited. Great to hear it. One of the most important things to do when you're new to Credit Versio, go through your tutorial videos. There's 4 core videos in there. There's 6 altogether. We have like deep dive videos, but those are more for like when you get into the process a little more. Doesn't hurt to watch them early on, but the core 4 that you find in your tutorial section, definitely spend about, I think they're 3 minutes each. So what is that? It's less than 15 minutes. You can go through the whole tutorial course. And then what you have in your hands is a software system that is better at the dispute process than any human being alive. And by the way, I'll give you a little bit of an insight. This is something, we don't have NDAs with everybody, but this is something that I occasionally like to share, but it's a small, intimate group, so I don't mind sharing it with you. There's a couple massive credit repair companies in the U.S., just guys that I've known for many, many years, that are behind the scenes doing all of their disputes, not with processors, not with human beings, but they're using our software. They license our software because an expert looking at the credit repair process, when you know all about it, you know what the letter should say, you know how the whole process should work and where to find errors and how to write to these errors and how to follow up. When they look at Credit Versio, they're like, we don't have a team that can duplicate what this can do. So the whole point of me telling you this is not really to brag about Credit Versio, but to let you know that you're in great hands, because the software is a credit expert. You don't have to be. Nobody has to be a credit expert to use the software. It's going to guide you through the whole process. Okay, we got some hellos. Jonathan, thank you so much for being here. Welcome from Chicago. Jay, all right, not new. Equifax is the pain. Jay, I'm going to get to that in a second. I want to address that. All right, Anthony, hello, not new to Credit Versio, just on continuous learning, just on for continuous learning. Excellent, great, love to hear it. And from Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina. All right, Anwat, welcome, great to have you here. And then we got Roscoe, welcome, new member with Credit Versio. Got a great turnout, already passing a dozen people here today. So we always have like a nice, intimate group. and that way we can talk about whatever subject we want to talk about. So fire away. I'm gonna go on about the subject that I've chosen for today, and that's discussing what happens when the Bureau rejects your dispute letter. Happens on occasion. So I want to dismiss some myths. That's almost a tongue twister right there. And on why people think that happens. I'm going to talk about why it really does. And then a very, very simple, very easy fix to address this. This is built into Credit Versio. We knew this was coming. It's nothing special. And then we'll go into it. All right. Good afternoon to you too. Thank you so much. Timothy, 2 months in from Brooklyn, New York, but discouraged with it. Okay. We'll talk about that. Joe, welcome. Love this software. Sent my first letters, waiting for a response. Maybe next week. Okay. So make sure, Joe, when you log in, look at the top of your Credit Versio account. There's a countdown timer there. It'll tell you exactly when the next letters are going to come in. All right. And Desi, welcome. Good to have you here. All right. Got a great turnout today. Thank you so much. Everybody's participating a little bit. All right, so now one of the rules that I have when we do our lives is if you have a question, make it specific. I got to put it up on the screen. I prefer to anyway, and make it as short as possible. So I forgot who it was. Who just said they were discouraged with it? Give me something, let me know what's going on. Ask a question. That's the best way to address these things, and then that way I can, we can diagnose whatever the problem might be. Now remember, also, you got to have a position of understanding how the dispute process works. As far as, everybody goes into this with an expectation that something's going to happen, or a desire. Not even an expectation, but more of a desire, a hope. Like, hey, I'm going to dispute as much of this as I possibly can. I want to get everything off. I want to get my credit score as high as it can possibly be. All of those are very, earnest ambitions. That's really what you want to have happen, but it doesn't always work out that way. And what I mean by that is, in the Fair Credit Reporting Act, this is the piece of legislation that was written to protect you and me from false or incomplete information on the credit report. It allows us to do to put in some checks and balances. And in the Fair Credit Reporting Act, essentially it says that anything that is either, and this is the language right out of the Fair Credit Reporting Act, it's erroneous, so if it's got an error on it, erroneous, outdated, incomplete, or unverifiable. Those are the 4 key reasons why things get deleted from credit reports. Now, that means that an account has to be erroneous, outdated, incomplete, or unverifiable. If it doesn't fall under any of those categories, then the items are going to remain on the credit report. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to have an error or it has to be incomplete. A lot of things get deleted because they're just simply unverifiable, and that's really the bulk of what happens when you do disputes. Now, this is apart from the fact if Credit Versio finds errors, and it does find them all the time. And when you look at your dispute reason, sometimes you'll see that error word right there in the dispute reason, or the suggested reason. It'll say error, and then you know that Credit Versio found something that might have been hard to find. Okay, so that's my intro. We're going to get into the topic of the evening, and while I'm doing that, feel free to interrupt if you've got a question. This is your time. It's our time together, but I'm here for you to answer questions. I want to give you everything that I've learned doing this for over 10 years now. I can't tell you how many disputes, probably millions, even before I came to Credit Versio. So, and Credit Versio is probably many, many, many times that, although we're not doing credit repair physically, the software's doing it, but we're the ones that control the strings, and we learn a lot from what's going on behind the scenes. Okay, so let's see. Timothy, let's see, got a question already, and then we'll get into the subject that I was going to talk about. Credit Bureau said repossessions were accurate, so I don't think Credit Versio can remove those accounts. So Credit Versio doesn't, I know this is just semantics, but Credit Versio doesn't remove anything. Credit Versio is just a dispute machine. Now, Timothy, the question I'm going to ask you is, how many rounds of disputes did you do? So keep in mind, and this is for everybody, when you do a dispute, when you send your first round of dispute, in fact, that's what we're going to talk about tonight. This is the beginning of the subject that I'm going to talk about tonight. Is that first round, when it goes out, it's not uncommon for the creditor to send an automatic response that says all the information is reporting correctly. It's reporting accurately. And then sometimes you'll get either an email or you'll get a letter from the bureaus, sometimes even a postcard. I've seen that before, where they state that the information has been determined to be reporting accurately. And this is one of the reasons why people quit a lot of times when they do their own credit repair, or they buy templates online, or even if they hire a credit repair company. They're expecting something to happen on that round one, nothing really happens, or they get that kind of a response and they just kind of throw their hands up and they give up, not knowing that that's just the round one. Now, this is a suspicion that I have. I've never been able to confirm this, but this seems to be right. And that is, I believe that a lot of the data furnishers might have that as a default response because they might believe that a lot of people are just, like machine gun or shotgun fire. They're just disputing everything to see what'll come off. And if they just give you that kind of boilerplate response that everything's reporting accurately, you'll just go away. And you know what? It probably works most of the time, unless you're doing something like you've hired a full-service credit repair company, or you follow the instructions in Crediversio and you know this is a multi-round process. So Timothy, round two. Okay, you know what? Now, did you get your response from round two? Are you in round two? Because remember what round two is. Round two is stating that you don't agree with their assessment and that you want them to provide some kind of documentation that a reasonable investigation was done. That's language right out of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. So if you're in round two and you haven't had your round two update, maybe something will happen. So you got your response from it. So go, let me just put this up on the screen so everybody can see it. Okay. Go to round three. If you're disputing other things and you've got other things to dispute, you might as well throw the repossession in there anyway. Go to round three. Go to round four. And I think probably the most important question I can ask you, Timothy, is it right? Is it correct? Now, Crediversio is going to look for errors. It's going to compare that account across all three bureaus. That's how it finds anomalies. It finds discrepancies. It's comparing the data. But it doesn't know what the backstory is. Meaning, if you shouldn't have a repossession there, it doesn't know that. It's just reading the data off the credit report. If you came to some agreement with the lender and it's not being reflected in the credit report, in the data there, Crediversio is not going to know that. If there's a balance that's not correct, Crediversio is not going to know that. So that's why we always have that drop down where you can do a custom reason. So, and you'd be surprised, a lot of people use custom reasons, probably use the suggested reason more often than not, but the custom reason is there because people see legitimate stuff on their credit report that's not right and it shouldn't be there, and that's what that option is for. So, Timothy, if you're getting the response back, they're saying everything is okay, make sure you look at that account. Are the dates right? Again, Crediversio doesn't know when all this happened. It just knows what's on the data, or it knows what's on the credit report. So make sure you scour through that. Hey, this is your legal right. Hit them with whatever you want. Now, if it looks 100% kosher, and you're like, yeah, geez, they kind of got me on this one. And I was there too. I went through the credit repair process myself, and when I did this, 10 plus years ago, I would say, I think 50% of the stuff I disputed came off, and the 60-50% stayed. So that's the reality of it. We'd love to have everything deleted, and sometimes we have in our head that there's certain things that we want deleted more than others because we think that has more gravity to it. Whether that's a real assessment or not is kind of immaterial. What's going to get deleted is going to get deleted. All right. So let's see. Jay, I'm on like round 30 with Equifax. Okay. Well, So Jay, well, Equifax doesn't abide by the laws. I mean, that's kind of a sweeping indictment. You got to put a little bit more on that for me. What does that mean? Because sometimes I hear like, well, I wanted the original contract that I signed back in 1989. People come up with some crazy stuff. They ask the bureaus, and the bureaus doesn't give it to them because they don't have it, and then they say that they're not following the law. I'm not saying, Jay, that's what you're doing. I'm saying, what's the context for that? Because bureaus, by the way, contrary to what a lot of people think, bureaus really do. And I know people who've worked at the bureau. Some of them are our partners. Some of them I talk to on a very routine basis. And one of the things you'll always hear them say is like, we really care that the data is right. We really want to help the consumer get this information right. Now, that's not the spin that credit repair companies tell you. As far as credit repair companies are concerned, they're the enemy and they're trying to hold you back and hold you down. And listen, that sells a lot of products and it gets people all worked up, but it's really not true. I mean, it couldn't be further from the truth. So make sure you're diagnosing what's going on, Jay, and that's what I'm here to help you. So if you've got something specific you want to know about what you're doing or what kind of result you're getting or what's wrong with the account, let's be specific. Again, we got 45 minutes together. I want to help you as much as I can. So just laser focus that question and I'll answer it for you. Okay, what do we got here? Roscoe, before I joined Crediversio, another credit repair person recommended I freeze info with LexisNexis and SageStream and the second, kind of like the second level reporting agencies. The answer to that question, Roscoe, I'll put it up one more time, is that is another credit repair myth. So here's the way. Now, freezing your credit reports is always a good idea. It just is an extra layer of protection against identity theft and fraud. So I'm a fan of it. I'm a fan of, even if you don't want to freeze your account, you can put a fraud alert on everything. Now, a fraud alert just makes sure that wherever you're applying for credit, they're just going to do an extra step to check your ID. Okay, that's a great idea. If you're really worried about identity theft, it's maybe you lost your wallet or something happened, left your credit card somewhere, your information somewhere, you're goofing around online and maybe you entered your information in a place maybe you shouldn't have. Freezing is a good place. But you can freeze your LexisNexis and your SageStream. I say those separately, but they're one company now. They merged together a little while ago. That will not prevent the bureaus from verifying information. So here's the supposition, or here's the theory that's actually not right. And if you ask anybody who understands how data reporting works, they're going to tell you this. You ask credit repair people, you'd be surprised. Some of them don't know this. But you can freeze your LexisNexis, SageStream, and your secondary bureaus, and that will prevent creditors from accessing the data. But you cannot prevent the credit bureaus from going to LexisNexis and SageStream to verify your public records, because that's really a tactic people think is going to work when they're trying to dispute their bankruptcy. I've seen so many comments in blogs and the whole blogosphere. They're like, I don't know why or how they're able to verify my bankruptcy. I froze my LexisNexis account. Does no good. Okay, don't waste your time. At least not for that purposes. If you want to freeze it for security, that's a whole other thing. So hope that answers your question. But Roscoe, there's a lot of games that people suggest that you play in the credit repair space. They don't even know that they're wrong, but it's factually incorrect. Okay. Sabrina, personal information. Like, I have a bankruptcy that will be 10 years in March 2023. Great. I can't get addresses removed based on it relates to the bankruptcy. So, again, now maybe I'm making some assumptions, but I've heard this so many times, Sabrina. There's no reason to remove your old addresses. This is a section called PII. It's at the very top of the credit report. Usually below your scores, you have your PII section. It's a personal identifying information. You're going to have your full name, date of birth, addresses, employers. All of this is information really for you. It's not really even for the bureaus. What you and I see, what all of us here collectively see, versus what the credit bureaus have is very, very different. You and I see what's called a consumer disclosure report. You and I have never seen a credit report. I work with guys and talk to guys at bureau levels, FICO, who have access to this. I've never seen a credit report in my life. A credit report has everything. Okay, I'm 52, almost 53 years old. My credit report goes all the way back probably 30 years as far as when I first started getting credit. But most of that's not on my consumer credit disclosure, what you and I call a credit report. So the idea that that you can remove your names and disassociate yourself from credit, that's a pure myth. And by the way, who was it that asked this a second ago? Was it Sabrina? Sabrina. Congratulations on the bankruptcy coming off in March. By the way, you have fully recovered from that bankruptcy. you recovered from that bankruptcy probably 5 years ago. I've seen people with 800 credit scores with bankruptcy, with a 3-year-old bankruptcy. It's actually a lot easier to recover from bankruptcy than it is from collections and charge-offs that still have balances that are still unpaid, because those have a tremendous amount of gravity to them. So congratulations. As long as you're building great credit, I mean, you're doing a great job. All right, let's see. Jay, even after attaching the letters from the creditors, Equifax still don't remove the hard inquiries. Okay, fair enough. That's a good question. Let's diagnose this real quick, and then I definitely want to jump into the subject of the evening. Okay, so inquiries. Inquiries are in the category of FICO and Vantage score, which are both the same, which is 10% of your overall credit score. Now, that does not mean inquiries are 10% of your score, not even close. They're just in the category where there are other factors considered. Inquiries is just one of them. So the reason why I'm telling you that, Jay, is inquiries are the most inconsequential account, not even account, data entry on a credit report, because it's not a trade line, it's not a collection, it's not a public record, it's actually just an entry. It's just an inquiry entry. So I want you to know a couple of things about inquiries. Number one, this is with FICO. FICO, no model of FICO. You can go back 20 years to the old mandated FHFA Model 2, 4, and 5 models for mortgage, all the way up to FICO Model 10 and 10T, which is what we have today. No FICO model cares about inquiries when they're over 12 months old. And it doesn't matter how many inquiries you have, as long as they're all within a 45-day period. Like, let's say you went shopping for a car, Jay, or you went mortgage shopping, and you've got, let's use the car example, because that's the one that I like the most, because that's the one that freaks people out the most, is let's just say you had 5, 6, 7 inquiries, and they all were within about a week period of time. Those are all considered to be one inquiry. Okay, the FICO has something called deduping. It's a technology they have. They know that you're shopping for an auto loan. They know you're not shopping for 8 different cars. They know you're shopping for one car at 8 different places. So as long as all those inquiries take place within 45 days in the same industry, they're counted as one inquiry. If it has an effect on your score, which it might, 2 points, 4 points, usually it's never more than that, it's very, very temporary. People get really excited about inquiries, and it's not something to be excited about. Now, Vantage score is slightly different. Vantage score doesn't care what industry it's in. As long as they're all within 30 days, you could have 50, 100 inquiries. They don't care. It's one inquiry as far as Vantage score is concerned. So why do I tell you this, Jay? Because it really stresses me out when I see people get anxious about inquiries. It's the least important thing on your credit report. The only time inquiries are ever really important is if you're trying to get a business funding loan, and then they don't like inquiries. But apart from that, they're very negligible. I applaud you for grinding, but man, if you spend 4, 5, 6 months trying to get inquiries off, you've probably already recovered from them by that time. Okay. On what? I don't know where to sign up with you guys. Creditversio.com. It's really easy. And I think you asked about an app. No, we don't have an app. I know, it's strange, isn't it? Here's why. Excuse me. We didn't build an app because we're not app builders. We get asked for an app every now and then, but here's the thing. The mobile, Creditversio is a mobile, how do they call it? It's a mobile web app. Meaning that 93% of people who use Creditversio are on a smartphone. It's designed, it actually works better on a smartphone. You can use it on desktop, but man, I like it better on a smartphone. So you don't need an app to run Creditversio. Just go to creditversio.com, runs on your phone, looks beautiful. Make sure you use Google Chrome, by the way. I think Safari's okay, but just stick with Google Chrome, all right? Let's see. Jesse, if you were on the court docket and the creditor court has issued a summons for you for several months from now, is it too late to send a dispute letter? Yeah. So, Jesse, are you getting served by a creditor, or have you been served by one of your creditors? Is that what you're telling me? And um, if that's the case, then yeah, you don't want a dispute letter. You want to get on the phone with that creditor and you want to work that out. That's bad news all day long. And in fact, that's one of the things that I talk about quite a bit with some of the mentality that you'll see in the credit repair space is, don't pay the collection, don't pay the bill. If it's already been charged off, don't pay it. Well, bad things can happen if you don't. And this is one of those examples I've seen countless times where sometimes creditors are going to exercise their right to reclaim that debt, and they'll do it through the court system. So you want to make sure that you handle that. It's not something that you want to run from. Okay, let's see. I see. So you're just messaging back and forth with each other. Okay, not a problem there. Let's see. I think I got everybody's question. Very good. Let's see. Do y'all help people build credit? No, we don't, but we'll show you what to do. So there's some credit coaching videos in the back of Credit Versio. It's really important that you understand how scores work, how credit works, get a good basis for how credit works, and then that's when you'll start building credit. But you'll know what to do. It's not very hard at all. Okay, let's go to so getting back to what I was talking about a minute ago. One of the things that can happen, and I've got an example here because this just happened recently, but it happens periodically. You send in a dispute letter, and they send a letter back. So let me put this up on the screen. I'm going to share my screen with you real quick. Okay. So check out this this response from TransUnion. Let me scroll up a little bit. Now I highlighted in yellow the response. It says, we recently received a request that included your information, but it didn't appear that you or a properly authorized third party sent it to us. All right. We take the privacy and security of your data very seriously, so we don't want to process a request unless they come directly from you or an authorized third party. If you're working with a third party, such as a credit repair company or a credit clinic, so on and so forth. Okay, so here's what I want you to here's what we're going to talk about. Three things here. Okay, number one is that they don't believe the letter was sent by you. Number two, that they're refusing to do the dispute or handle the dispute because they think it wasn't sent by you. And third, they're under the impression that this might have come from a credit repair company. Now, as it turns out, the dispute didn't come from a credit repair company. The dispute came from somebody using Credit Versio. But what will happen on occasion, and this is more something you see with TransUnion, but it does happen with Experian and with Equifax. Again, remember early on I told you about like stall tactics, like the bureaus might, they might throw a response saying, hey, we believe this is, that your creditor said that this is reporting accurately. Well, sometimes you'll get this as, I don't want to call it a stall tactic. I don't think there's nothing malicious behind this at all. I think that they look for certain patterns and think, well, maybe this has come from a credit repair company. So what you'll hear out there, I've heard this a million times from credit repair people, and it's an uninformed statement that you've got to be creative when you write your dispute letters. You can't use a template letter. You can't look like a template letter. It's got to, you got to write it in hand or handwrite it in blue ink, and you've got to do this and that. And it's completely untrue. In fact, let me show you something really quick. Let me go back to sharing my screen. And I'm going to completely dismantle that by showing you this. A large chunk of dispute letters that the bureaus receive that don't come from credit repair companies, that don't come from a Credit Versio, come from a place where you can download templates. Again, a template letter. And you can get it from the FTC. Here's the Federal Trade Commission. Okay, and here is a sample letter disputing errors on a credit report. They'll give it to you. This is the template right here. Doesn't look all that different from a Credit Versio letter. Doesn't look all that different from really any template letter. I don't think anybody has an expectation that you got to just invent some new stuff when you send in a letter. It's all very straightforward. It begins with subject, disputing information in credit report. Okay, common sense. I am writing to dispute the following information your credit company or your company supplied. Basic stuff. Okay, there's a reason why I'm giving you these examples right now. Here's example 2. This is a sample letter that comes from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Okay, the CFPB. And you can download the sample letter right there. I've already downloaded the letter. It's right here. There you go. It's in Word format. And it's the same thing. They give you the addresses right here. Tell you to put your name, your address, your phone number. Tell you what to include and give you some language. Okay, so why am I bringing up these 2 examples? I'm bringing up these 2 examples because you hear so many times people saying you can't do a template letter. It's got to be creative. It's got to use, confusing language, and you know, none of that's true. The reason that this is significant is the FTC and the CFPB are both regulatory agencies over the credit bureaus. They're the ones that oversee the actions of the credit bureaus. Okay, can you imagine the credit bureaus rejecting template letters from the agencies that regulate them? Can you imagine how dumb that would be? All of a sudden, like, no, the CFPB is the government agency that has oversight over the bureaus. In fact, most of the financial industries in the U.S. And we're just going to completely ignore the template letters that they provide to the U.S. citizens to dispute inaccurate information on their credit report. That would be a nightmare. So let's just completely disband this whole idea and disregard this whole idea that template letters somehow are just going to be summarily dismissed and rejected by the credit bureaus once they get them. They're not. The bureaus don't care what format it's in. They just want a dispute letter that makes sense, that's clear, uses simple language, explains what you're disputing and why. That's it. That's all you have to do. All right, so let's go back to this letter. And so in the letter, it's saying, we've already shown it, but I'll put it up one more time. There we go. So in the letter, zoom in a little bit. Again, it's saying that they believe it wasn't sent by them. Okay, that's not really an issue with credit-versial letters, because at the bottom it says, if you've noticed, there's a place where you can where you sign your name, and just above that it says, I have personally sent this letter. Language to that effect. So it's telling the bureaus that, no, this, just in case you might suspect that this is coming from somebody else, it didn't. I sent it myself. But still, can you get a letter like this from time to time? Yes, it happens. People who send dispute letters in templates that come from the FTC and the CFPB are also going to get this from time to time. Okay, again, it's not malicious. They're not trying to blow you off. I can't tell you exactly why it happens. It's probably some kind of an algorithm that's running in the background that helps them weed out credit repair companies, because they can legally do that, and I'll put it up right here. I had a conversation with a credit repair guy yesterday. Had a meeting with him, and I let him know about, where is it? I want to show you this real quick. Here it is. Okay. This was news to him. This is what we call exclusion G. It's in the Fair Credit Reporting Act. After the Fair Credit Reporting Act goes through paragraphs and pages explaining what the protocol is when they receive a dispute from a consumer. The very end, and by the way, it's very meticulous. It's very specific as what they have to do. At the very end of all of that, they say, it's almost like they say, by the way, here it is, exclusion of credit repair organizations. It says this paragraph, they're talking about the whole paragraph that explain what they have to do when they receive a dispute from a consumer. This paragraph shall not apply if the notice of the dispute is submitted, this is the dispute letter, or online, is prepared on behalf of the consumer by or is submitted on a form supplied to the consumer by a credit repair organization. So what does that mean? And why do people sometimes get letters like this? What it means is, not that the bureaus do it all the time, but they certainly have permission to do this. that if a letter comes from a credit repair company, they can discard it. And they'll do it sometimes by sending a letter like this. So what do? What's the response? When you do your round 2 dispute, this is very easy. We accounted for this early on. All of us that were involved in the construction, the marketing, the education of Credit Versio, we've been in this business a long time. This isn't our first rodeo. We've seen this stuff. And we were prepared for it. So that's what this part is right here. Okay, what we're looking at here is the add dispute reason. This is in your round 2 or round 3. You're probably going to get this right off of your first letter. You don't really see this happening off of your second letter. They responded to the first one. They're not going to give you this kind of response on the second. Okay. So for example, this is a Macy's account, and if you look, you see how I've got it circled in red, frivolous dispute response. Now read the language here. I previously disputed this account. I don't agree with your claim that it's frivolous. I personally created and mailed this letter, and I provided the reasons for my dispute in simple language. Okay, and it goes on below that, but you get the idea. So that is the correct response to this. This is essentially saying that they believe it wasn't sent by you, could be frivolous, and all you're doing in the follow-up is you're restating, this was sent by me. I signed it. It's sent by me. You have 30 days to conduct a reasonable investigation and reply. Now, another thing, let me see here. Let me put a pause there. I've got another question for Sabrina. Is it illegal to have medical bills on your credit report? Illegal? No. So it's funny you should bring this up, because this was a topic that I was talking to my business partner who sits across from me. And we were talking about medical collections. And yes, there's been a change. It largely took place in July of 2022. Not all of it is in place yet. So I'll give you some interesting facts here. But the first thing is, Sabrina, no, it's illegal wouldn't be the right word. This is a voluntary thing that the bureaus have decided to do. Now, it is a little coincidental that it came behind a pretty damning report that the CFPB came out with about a year earlier. I think they've been working on it for a year, but it might have come out maybe a little bit a year before they made this decision. What essentially it said, they didn't feel that medical debt was a good indicator of risk on credit reports. And there's a lot more to it, but the bureaus essentially said, yeah, you know what, that makes a lot of sense. Medical debt is not something that might not be a good predictor for risk as far as being a borrower. So what happened is the bureaus have decided amongst themselves to do a couple of things. One, this happened immediately, is that the time for a collection that would go on your credit report, usually there was a 180-day waiting period. They extended that to 6 months. They extended that to a year. And then all paid collections were going to be deleted. Okay, so nothing paid was going to be on a credit report. Now, that didn't so much matter because the first part of this year, Vantage Score 3 and 4, so 3.0, 4.0, it doesn't matter if there's a collection on your credit report that's paid or not paid. Those scoring models don't even consider collections anymore. And they haven't since sometime late January. So this is very, very recent news. So you heard it here first. And then what's going to happen sometime in the first half of this year, and this is what the discussion was earlier today, is when do collections under $500 not appear on credit reports at all? So there's no specific date. We were researching this a little bit today. And there's no date yet, but they believe it's going to be, or they claim it's going to be the first half of 2023. So at some point here, collections that are under $500, unpaid, paid, whatever, are not going to be on there. Well, actually, I should say paid, because unpaid is, or paid is already removed. Collections that are unpaid are not going to appear on credit reports, provided they're $500 or less. Okay, so we'll see. So we're still seeing them on credit reports right now. I'm not exactly sure how we're all going to get notification that they're no longer going to be reported, but I imagine they're probably going to send out some kind of announcement. Okay, another part when you're doing, now I don't suspect this is going to be the group here, but when you're sending your dispute letters, another reason why people get this frivolous dispute. Let me put it back up on the screen. Okay, right here. This came from TransUnion. Let me see if I can scroll down a little bit. Okay, there you go. Yeah, so this from TransUnion, essentially letting this person know they're not going to conduct the investigation because they believe the letter was not sent by them. So what are some other ways that you can fool the credit bureaus into thinking that the letter wasn't sent by you, or that the letter was created by a credit repair company? One of the things you never want to do, and I was having this a little bit of a debate in I think on our Facebook page not too long ago, maybe a month or two ago, and somebody was saying, hey, or they're asking us, do you guys cite the laws in your dispute letters? My answer was no. Why would you want to cite the laws in the dispute letter? Like the bureaus don't know the laws? Everything that they do in some way is dictated by consumer protection law. So you don't need to tell them what they already know. What's gonna happen is they might consider that, because you know who does that? You know who cites laws in dispute letters? Credit repair companies. And I know that because I was guilty of that for a long, long time. And that was sort of the template-driven industry of disputes. Like if you got an account with, there's a lot of companies out there that, you sign up, you become a credit repair company, or you get into the business, and they provide you dispute letters and training. And the problem with that is, like I said earlier, a lot of these people never talk to somebody who works or comes from the credit bureaus. It's all just this little credit repair ecosystem where credit repair people talk to credit repair people, and they don't really go outside of it. So, and they're not particularly good at data, so they're not really comparing data. No, I don't think I've ever seen anybody in the credit repair space have a really good hold of a basic statistics rule, which is called the law of large numbers. This is how you measure things over a long period of time with a lot of numbers. So what happens is people think, well, I got some success off of this dispute letter, this must work. And then, they ignore the times it doesn't work. And then pretty soon they think that, well, this is sort of, if I cite laws and do all this is going to work. When in reality, over a large period of time, it works no different than you could send a dispute on a cocktail napkin and just say the same thing. You probably get the same result over a period of time. I know that sounds ridiculous, but that's not really far off. In fact, the way that I learned this is I've got a buddy of mine who sat me down years ago and said, and he used to run the dispute division for TransUnion, West Coast office of TransUnion, 15,000 disputes per day. This is the guy that was in charge of that. And one day he just said, and again, these are types of people that most credit repair companies never meet for various reasons we don't need to get into. But he said, listen, you don't need to cite the laws. You don't need to tell these long stories. Just make it simple. We don't care. I mean, we'll read the dispute, but just make it real simple. What are you disputing? Why are you disputing it? What's the account information? That's it. We know the laws. And so that was a little surprising because it went against everything that we were taught. And then not right away, but eventually we did change the dispute letters. We removed all of the quoting the law, and you've got to do this, and the FCRA says this, and here's the case law where this happened. Like, they don't know that. So a couple things happened. One is our dispute letters went from like 12 pages to 2 pages or 3 pages, and we got the exact same result. And our clients did not get that frivolous dispute, or this was not prepared by you letter as often, because it looked like something that a consumer would send. Okay. CFPB good? Yeah, Jay, what do you mean by good? Yeah, I mean, I think they're a little overreaching with some things, but I think they, as much as a government agency that controls so much of our financial lives, can be good. I think they're okay. Others, I'm sure, would have a different opinion, but as far as overseeing the credit bureaus, I think they've inspired some good change, actually. It wasn't the CFPB, but it was attorneys general years ago that inspired they were getting ready to go after the bureaus. There's probably about 20 or 30 of them. So it was a big group of attorneys generals that were going after, getting ready to go after the credit bureaus. And that's how we ended up getting NCAP. I know I don't want to go into a lot of detail, but that's how tax liens and judgments were removed from credit reports back in July of 2018. That was a preemptive move on the credit bureau's part because they felt heat coming on them. So that's what happened with this medical collections. The CFPB was the instigator this time, and as a result, arguably you could say we all got a pretty good result out of it. Okay, Turk Frost, take care. Just signed up. I'm referring to everyone. I have faith in you because you sound so genuine. I appreciate that. Listen, that's one of the things that I love to do. This is when I came into the credit repair space 10 years ago, I came in as a client. I didn't know anything about credit. I mean, really. Like, everybody talks about how, credit's a scam, scores are a scam, the bureaus are against you, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay. You can't put that kind of a face on it just because we're ignorant of what it is. And I'm that way. I was that way too. I didn't know how any of this stuff worked, but it wasn't their fault. It wasn't the bureau's fault. The bureaus have been around for, in some form or another for over 100 years. FICO's been around since the 50s. I mean, this is all stuff that's been around longer than most of us. So it's really incumbent upon us to learn how this stuff works. I mean, we've been walking around with these things, these smartphones. I guess you could say arguably maybe the iPhone in 2007 was the first truly integrated smartphone. But we had Blackberries, we had other types of smartphones. We've had the internet since 91? I think I remember getting it in 92. So you can't really use that as an excuse for not understanding credit, because it's been there. You know what? You can go to Experian.com, you can go to FICO.com, and you could read for about an hour, and you'd get it. It's all right there. It's really not that complicated. So, what is my job to do? My job is just to take all that information and just make it really, really easy to understand and give it to you in a very personal way, as opposed to having to spend hour on a website or two or whatever it is, and also to answer questions. Oh, hold on. Sorry. Marshall, do I do one-on-one consultations? No, I don't, Marshall. I used to back in the day. It's really not necessary anymore because I did one-on-one consultations when I was fixing people's credit, when that was my role at my old company. But it's really not a thing now. The software is doing, the Crediversio is doing what I had an entire team of 50 people doing. Between my customer service and all the sales reps and my 25-person team overseas that was doing all the dispute processing, reading credit reports, it's done now. Crediversio does all of that. So, I mean, if you have questions, I got Travis in the other room who I've trained, who's very, very good. If it's a question he can answer, which I don't think he gets stumped anymore, so you can email support@crediversio.com. You're going to get Travis. He's one of my best students, and he'll answer it for you. There's nothing really all that complicated. Let's see. Ooh, I'm not even going to try that name. I don't want to chop that up. Okay, how recent do the late payments have to be in order for them to be removed, and how likely are they willing to remove them? Great question. Okay, so it depends on a couple of things. Is the information? Let me put this up one more time. Is the information correct? Is the late payment correct? If it's correct, sometimes that's going to pose some problems. It really depends on the creditor. So when you say how likely are they willing to remove it, you know what? There's no answer to that because only they can answer that question. First, is the late payment correct? If it's not, do you have some documentation to prove that it's not? If it is correct, and listen, use your FCRA given right to dispute it. That's the great thing about a dispute. You don't have to provide any proof. You can ask. You can say, "Hey, I don't know if this is right." In Crediversio, it's such a canned dispute reason, but it says, "Hey, I don't remember. I don't know if I was late on this. Can you provide some documentation of exactly when I was late?" The burden of proof, the burden of performance is on the creditor, aka data furnisher. Sometimes they don't do it. Sometimes they're like, God, somebody's got to put somebody on this. Let's just delete the late payments. It happens. Okay, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. I can't give you odds because there's no way for us to know what another company's going to do behind the scenes. There's just no data on that. But as far as how new it is, I mean, just take the advice that I gave you. If it's not supposed to be there, then that's one thing. Now I will say this: as things age, now you're going to recover from this fully as long as you're doing everything else right. You can recover from late payments in 12 to 24 months. They hit hardest in that first 12 months. They lay off a little bit at between month 13 and 24, and then after that, they have very, very little effect, if any, as long as you're doing other good things. If you're still got late payments on everything else, then yeah, that's a problem. But if you just hit a bump in the road and everything else is being paid on time, you're going to see that late payments are really not that big of a deal. Okay, let's see. I meant for credit business versus credit coaching. Oh, no, actually. Well, Marshall, I mean, the only thing we do is we do white labels, but I mean, you got to be an established credit repair company for that or be in the space. But you can just send an email over to support@creditversio.com, and Travis will talk to you about it being an affiliate or doing a white label if you want to do that. Let's see, Sabrina, all you can do is email. Response time is quick and informational. Yeah, I think maybe you're responding to my suggestion to send in an email. Yeah, we're really good. The great thing about one of the many great things about Credit Versio is that the software it's very easy to use. People don't struggle using the software. So we don't have heavy customer service in here. I mean, Travis we have one customer. It's literally one customer service guy for tens of thousands of active users in Credit Versio. So it says a lot about how easy this is to use. Okay, I didn't realize this, but we're coming up over 50 minutes. So let's do this. I still see we've got 20 plus people on. I'll hang out here for another minute or two. If you've got a question, hit me with it right now. I'll get it answered for you. And I'll start closing some of my windows out here. But shoot me a question if you got it. If you don't have a question, then you can go ahead and drop off. That'll be it for today. Or if you're curious to see what somebody else asked, you can stick with it here. And then I'll answer it for you. But as always, I always appreciate you coming to the Q&A lives. I know what I wanted to ask you. What do you think about TikTok? Now, I don't mean TikTok as a platform, but some of our big white label partners that are using Credit Versio are huge on TikTok. One girl did a live and she had 400 people watching. I'm like, that's unbelievable. So I'm thinking about doing some TikTok lives. Do you guys have TikTok accounts? Would that interest you? I'm on the fence about it. I haven't really decided one way or the other. I've always looked at TikTok as kind of like a kid's thing, even though I look at TikTok quite a bit. So I am kind of hooked. I guess I am the big kid after all. But it really never occurred to me to do any TikTok lives or create a TikTok account. Credit Versio does have a TikTok account, but there's nothing on there yet. Okay, let's see. Anthony, hey, you're very welcome. Thank you for joining me today. I appreciate that. How much does it cost to use the software? It doesn't cost anything. The software itself is free. The only thing you have to have is a smart credit account. There's two price points, $19.95, $29.95. Just look at which one. They both work the same as far as Credit Versio is concerned, so Credit Versio doesn't care. So that's a subscription, 3-bureau monitoring account. Credit Versio has to get a credit report from somewhere. We're not in the credit report business. It's just we can't be in the credit report business because of the nature of the software. So we got to get it from somewhere. We partner with Smart Credit. It's got a great integration with us. We are partnered with Identity IQ. They're having some technical difficulties that they said they're going to fix. So hopefully we'll be integrated back with Identity IQ here pretty soon. I can't give you a date. Their price point is $24.95. So that's to answer your question. Whoever asked that question, that's what it costs. Okay, Sonia, you're very welcome. Turek, love TikTok. It's where you're going to connect with the youth and middle 18 to 35. Okay, great. That's good to know. It's kind of what I've been reading, but yeah, it's good to get that input. Wayne just finished first round. Credit Versio. It seems Equifax just ignored the dispute. Didn't get any dispute updates or results. Should I continue round 2? Yes, Wayne, of course. Round 1 is just the shot across the bow. One of the things that we say in the credit repair space, and this is, you can ask anybody that's in this business, they'll tell you that the credit repair process really starts at round 2. Because what happens, and just to recap from earlier, Wayne, exactly, let me put that back up there. Um, and the reason why we had this, I'm not sure when you came in or how much you saw or didn't see, but it's not it's not uncommon for bureaus to give you just a blow off letter, there's nothing malicious behind it, and it doesn't really so much come from the bureaus. It's more of a data furnisher thing. It's more with your creditors. Well, they'll either not respond or just respond back saying, "Hey, everything is hunky dory. It's all good. Everything's reporting accurately," and then most people disappear. Like, case in point, Wayne, let's just say, we didn't have this conversation. Maybe you got discouraged, didn't know what to do next. Maybe didn't watch the tutorial videos, which you should always watch, and thought, well, I gave it one shot, so I'm kind of done. Well, that would apply to a lot of people who try fixing their own credit. They do one round, the result that they want, didn't materialize, so they quit, not realizing that round one is just the start. Round two follows up. In fact, round two is a canned response. If there's been no change, or if the account's still derogatory, Credit Versio reads that. It can understand. It knows that account went through a round one dispute. It knows it didn't change, and then it queues up the second round dispute, which is, I don't agree with the outcome. I don't agree with you telling me that it's reporting accurately just because you said it is, or that you didn't respond. Please give me an explanation that you perform. Please prove that you performed what's called a reasonable investigation. Okay, air quotes, reasonable investigation. That's right there in the Fair Credit Reporting Act. They have to perform a reasonable investigation. Now, reasonable investigation is rather subjective, but something had to be done. So, Wayne, go on to round two, and you might need a round three and a round four, and maybe if there's errors, a round five. The credit repair process is a multi-round process. That's why people pay credit repair companies to do this, because they get confused, they get lost, they get discouraged, and that's why people end up getting caught paying hundreds or thousands of dollars. Credit Versio is going to do all that for you. Just follow its leads. And I know I said this not to sound like a broken record, but be sure to drop into your tutorial section and watch those tutorials. There's 4 of them. Actually, there's 6 of them, but the first 4 are the real important ones. And make sure that you 3 minutes each, I think one's 4 minutes. Watch those thoroughly, and it'll tell you exactly what to do and why you're going into multi-round disputes. It's a strategy. It's a chess game, and each round builds on top of the other. Anthony, finishing up here. I don't use most social media. Yeah, I don't either. I mean, I'm on it to the extent that we do business on it, but that's pretty much it. Although I can't get. Instagram loves to show me cats, because I got cats at home. My girlfriend came home with cats some time ago, so I became a cat dad somehow. Anyway, that's a story for another time. All right, Sabrina. I find Credit Versio is awesome way to use versus credit repair company. Yeah. Sabrina, and I'll drop off here in a second. It looks like we're winding down. We're at an hour now. Interesting thing. We've had 2 companies who are no longer, actually they're phasing out their full service credit repair, and they're just doing Credit Versio. They're white label, so they don't say Credit Versio. It's got their own company, but they are just providing credit coaching, and they're having everybody just do it themselves. Makes more sense. You can argue you can get a better result doing it yourself with Credit Versio than a credit repair company, because you have all those credit repair hurdles you got to get over, like them rejecting the letters, or you not knowing what's going on behind the scenes. That was a thing for me when I was at my old company. People would say, well, what did you guys write in the letter? Well, we can't show it to you. I mean, we could, but we just didn't have, we just didn't do that. And that wasn't my choice. That's just the way the company was set up. I didn't own the company. I just kind of ran it, or certain parts of it. Okay. Yeah, DIYs, yeah. I would say about 98% of the time, DIY is going to serve the best interest for everybody. So what's that 2%? If you have something on there that's just not coming off and you need legal representation, then that's the great thing about attorneys in this segment. They're free. They don't charge you anything. If you've got something on your credit report and it's wrong and it's not coming off, first of all, Credit Versio will probably catch that, and then they'll let you know that you probably need a little help, and it'll prompt you to reach out to an attorney. That's built into Credit Versio. But 8%, 99% of our users are never going to see that because that doesn't really happen all that often. Okay, we are all set for the day. Thank you so much. We have well over a dozen people still hanging on. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. If you're watching this as a replay, feel free to post a comment, question. More than happy to answer it for you. If you have something a little bit more detailed, send us an email at support@creditversio.com. We'll be more than happy to answer, and usually our responses are very, very quick. Okay, thank you so much, and have yourself a good rest of the week. Take care.